Kirk, you're back.
Tim, it's good to be here.
um, we've got something exciting to go through today. Composable data sources. Is that right?
That is correct. We've been waiting a
Okay.
long time for this feature.
Okay. I have to lead with this, which is I think I dissed Tableau during the Tableau conference keynote, saying they first talked about this in 2024, and I guessed that it might come out in 26.2, and I think we're
Yes.
nearing that release, which is why you're here. It's also worth highlighting that we have previously done a video on the data model. We in fact call it the Data Model Masterclass. It's been watched by thousands of people. I don't know what the most recent view count is, but I know it's in the high thousands at this rate. And this is intended as a follow on from that video. So if you're watching this for the first time, you don't know what the data model is, we have some homework for you to do. It's an hour and a half, but we think it's the best hour and a half on the data model that you'll ever watch, and it will set you up perfectly for this video. Is that fair, Cook?
That's perfect. And last I checked was 9100. So that's
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
not that I'm
Of course,
competitive.
you know the
That's
number.
fine.
So maybe by the time we launch this video, we'll be at 10,000. How about that? Let's push for that at least.
Yeah, let's push for that. I like that
Yeah.
10,000.
Okay.
I'm
So
definitely not going to go smash that. Yeah.
I smash that like, subscribe. Yeah. You've got a great channel too. I should add, we're going to be collabing on this feature, so you'll see both our channel names in here. Please subscribe to both of us. It really helps us out. And Kirk, I love having you on here because I know that when we do something like this, it's really detailed, it's really deep, and I always learn something, and I know my audience always learns something incredibly new. If we step back, can you
Yeah.
explain what composable means just out of the gate, just so we can sort of contextualize the term, then contextualize the feature?
Yeah, because a lot of people are calling it compostable data sources, but I don't think they break
Composable.
down. I don't think they break down.
Compost.
So they're organic. They're kind of the opposite of that.
Right.
Yeah, sure. Like in our video, when we talked about building data models in Tableau, we built a data model in Tableau desktop. We could have come to the web and went new published data source, right?
Right.
From either server or cloud. Um, uh, but the issue with that is if you're an individual analyst, there's no issue with it. That's the way you would do it.
Mhm.
Composable data sources might not even be exciting to you. But what happens in enterprise environments, which a lot of people watching will probably get, is somebody already built a published data source and you don't own that published data source and you want to say, just add another table to it.
Right.
Your only choices today are you have to go ask them to add your table to it, or you go, oh, I have to rebuild that, dragging and dropping, like, all your new and then that causes an explosion, right? And
Right.
that explosion, talk about that explosion super quick without AI.
Yeah. Okay.
Without AI, it's still a mess. Do you know what I mean? People don't know which one to use. With AI, it's going to be a lot of chatty stuff. And I'll give you a really we'll get into this a lot more, but imagine now if instead you published maybe even atomic tables. So you could publish fact tables, and ag tables, we should get into, would be fun. And dimension tables, however you want to think about it. Then if you add like commentary in it, such a terrible term, but like in
Yeah.
Tableau, you add metadata to describe the field, then any author, but also any AI client you point at it, like
Right.
that only has to be defined once instead of redefined over and over and over again in every single data source. So the term compose, to wrap this up, I think is now you can publish tables or smaller data sources and you can let analysts compose their own data source, is the way I think
Okay.
about it.
So I'm going to challenge that very briefly before we get into it, which is a Tableau conference. Tableau talked about this idea of the world's largest source of semantic models being the Tableau ecosystem itself. And if
Mm.
we dig into that, what they really mean is that, hey, every single published data source is
Right.
essentially a piece of semantic information. And I think what you kind of just explained is how they see this sort of semantic vision coming together, which is rather than
Yes.
going to define it in a warehouse, whatever, actually, you've already started that activity. You have done it for the last 20 years. The sort of final hurdle of that is actually just letting them talk to each other. Is that a fair sort of way of linking
Yeah.
Tableau's sort of idea with what you explained,
Mhm.
right?
Yep. And even today we'll look at, because these demos are always hard to do with a true data source because we have to use fake data anyway. But we will use, I will show how to use row level security, and we can update live Google Sheet, and that will automatically update a data source, in Tableau speak, a published data source that we didn't touch. We just added the row level security onto it.
Oh, wow.
Right. So.
Okay. Amazing, amazing. I think in another video we'll challenge that perspective, because I think that is one of the biggest, let's say, hurdles in the data world, to see Tableau as a semantic solution in that sense, right? Like it's people have never seen their published data sources as a semantic model in that sense, but they strictly are by definition, right? And so I think this feature really realizes that.
Well, it's super interesting because they can be or they cannot be, right? Like people could model,
True.
a one big table, point directly to that table or view, bring it into Tableau, no commentary, joins all pre-done. Is it a semantic model, right? But the exact same technology, bringing in tables at their natural grain, given the proper level of commentary, now it's a semantic model. So part of the problem for sure is it relies on the person creating it to make it a proper semantic model or not, I think.
Good
is
taste.
Yeah.
Right. Show me how it works. I'm all ears.
Yeah. So again, we're referring back to this Bookshop data source, right? So this isn't the one. You'll notice I've got this certified data source.
Gonna say,
That if I click on it, it says, yeah, Kirk and Tim both certified this semantic model. So this one clearly we think of as, but anyway, I'm going to create a workbook using this. So this isn't the full semantic model we made last time, or data model we made last time. What it is, if we come and look at it, is it's remember we talked about we're a bookseller who we sell books, and then we also people can check the books out. So whether it's a library or like Audible,
right,
doesn't super matter, but it's that kind of metaphor in this model. But let's say that that we use some other platform to do that, and we only get the data once a month on books that were checked out. So they're not really in like our data model. So we built this data model though. One thing I did, which you can't see here, I could go back to the data model. I actually took info to get like genre as an example, and I joined it one-to-one inside this book. But now it becomes a logical table, right? So we can do some pretty cool things with this like on our own, right? Like there's only 1 year of data in this, it's pretty limited, and the year's 2193 or whatever, but people can go download it. We'll put the link down there so people can do that. But imagine if we wanted to say sales, like we could go sales date by month, continuously, and then just do a count of sales. And then we could take something like, we could do author, whatever we wanted to, but let's take genre and put it on or something, right? So we could take that and put it on color. Not that, maybe it doesn't follow visual best practices, but we get an idea. Do you know what I mean? Like sci-fi pops the most, mystery, children. We did this in the other video. But now imagine what if we think about, so there's two things we can do with composable data sources. And let me say that I'll admit what I was pretty blown away by in when they did this is it's the first time in a while that Tableau has given us a UX that is true to what Tableau was from day one, which was this whole, in the flow, get data, need data, whatever, right? So imagine how terribly out of the flow this would be if I wanted to bring in, say, for example, checkouts to this, right? Like what I would have to do is I couldn't come back here in the past and add checkouts. I would have to kind of come back here, right? I'd have to edit this data source. I'd have to go in and then add checkouts to the existing data source, right? But I don't want to do that. I might mess up other people who are using it. There you can see book is a join there, right? But what they let you do here, and I was blown away by this. I wasn't expecting it. I thought at least I could go add other data sources to that data source to compose a new data source. But what they almost have is they gave us embedding as a choice. We can do that. You can't do what I expected, but they gave us embedding as a choice. So in the flow of our work, let's say one of the questions we answered in the other one, and then one I challenged you to do with this data set with Claude was, what's the relationship to checkouts, right? So I can come back here almost like in Embedded for people who know then Tableau. I can say, you'll see now I have this, or I will have. I should mention, I'm in a beta site here. This is coming in the first kind of maintenance release, whatever they call it at 26.2.
Oh,
So
one of two.
yeah, 20,
Yeah.
whatever it's 26.2.1 or
Yeah.
probably.
In
Yeah.
like 2 months.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. So, but what I can do is I've already published. The only thing I did ahead of time is I took that table that we had, of checkouts, and I published it already as a data source. But I just went, bring it in, publish it as a
On
table
its own. Yeah.
on its own. So now I can go like this, right? Imagine before I would have had to try to do a blend or something crazy.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't have worked, right? So now I can just go checkout, right? And I can find that checkouts. And what's pretty slick about this, even if this was
Wow.
but I could drag from here to it, which I'll show you in a second. But in this case,
Oh.
we know this is this connects to books, right? Because remember, it doesn't have additions. If anyone watched the other video would know that. And then, so that's book ID to book ID, right? So, but I'm in the flow of work. I don't have to publish anything. It publishes with this. But remember, I have all the field commentary, calculations, whatever from here. So I still have security. I have all my enterprise governance, but the flexibility, almost like I'm working with flat files and desktop, right?
Yeah.
And to show you, one thing we would need now to compare dates, because this has dates trapped in it and this has dates trapped in it. This is just a multi-fact thing. We would always want a date. So I would say you would always now just have a date, published data source with like all the date dimensions you need in it, right? I think, yeah, let's take this one. But just to show, it doesn't have to be a base table, right? So now I have this dates table down here. I can go checkouts to dates like that, right? And if you remember, this one was, this only has months in it, right? So I'm going to go checkout month to month of date. So we can't go lower than month, but that's just the data, right? And then, but we also want to be able to hang this off it. And this, if I wanted, I could still go all the way down to granular because, so now we could do that thing that I think we did in our last video. Now what I could do is I could go, so now we have checkouts is in our model. Oh, great thing about relationships, they never break what's existing, like a join.
Yes, of course.
Like,
this is still working.
So, yeah, so it's still working, but now we could go say, so checkouts has this, so we could create a calculated field now, for example, and we could say, take the number of checkouts, which we'd want to sum, and then the other one's granular, so we can just do a row count, right? And Tableau gives us that automatically, like we saw in the last one. So this is like checkout to sales ratio. Maybe it makes more sense the other way, but checkout to sales ratio. And now if we took the checkout to sales ratio and we brought this on, and then now we're going to want to bring dates on from the date dim table, because it's effectively going to dynamically scaffold it is what it's going to do, right? So then, and same as we did there, and then we could still go by, we could still take genre and pull that in and put it on color, right? I might have done that calculation wrong, but anyway, you get the idea.
No, it's super flexible still. Yeah.
Right, like how flexible that is, right? So that's one use case, but I think like there's so many more use cases like other than that one. Like someone might catch what I did wrong there. At least that curve looks wrong to me. But we could test it. You get the idea of how it dynamically brings that data together for us. And when I publish the workbook, then I get this effectively embedded data source of published data sources. And
you get this
and now there's kind of a new thing. Remember, this is my favorite feature that no one knows about, which is I can come to worksheet view data model
on a worksheet basis.
Yeah. But now I can see two things. I can say only show the tables we're using, right? Which is not new. But I can also say, I don't care about this hierarchy, just like I want to see it.
Show it to me without.
Right. Or I can see it that way.
Yeah. And go back to the connection window. I just want to ask a couple of questions. And actually, I think it's a good place just to sit and take this feature in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I think there's a couple of really profound things, and you've just actually shown and answered one of my questions, which is,
Hmm.
in essence, like to your point, the way they've implemented this, we can almost imagine that the boundaries for each of these don't exist, right? Which is what the hide hierarchy is actually
Right.
doing. When you click on that,
Yep.
it just gets rid of those. So basically, it's like you if you came to it and looked at it, you wouldn't know that there's three published data sources in this connection.
Right.
So really kind of showcasing the power of semantics. The dates field could be like an organizational, like date calendar or something like that, published up from Alteryx or whatever. Your
Yep.
checkouts can be, you said row level security. You could have like any people are allowed to see certain transactions. So a
Yep.
manager who's maybe managing a region could have that on checkout. But then because you've still got your main data source model, they can still see the world of everything else, like the information about other books and other authors, but only see the sales information from their checkouts. Is that sort of what this suggests, if that makes
You
sense?
could,
If you've got that
yeah, depending
on
on,
checkouts?
de- yeah, depending on where you put the table for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
It all depends on how you do the relationship and what's
Right.
like how you build the query, because of course, the way the data model builds this out is going to have an effect on how that works. But
Right.
it's really quite flexible. I think what you said at the beginning was what I thought was going to happen, that you had to have some sort of really
Right.
strict relationship between these two things. But it's almost like, actually, no, don't worry. We'll just figure it out. And so I have one question, which is, what if I brought a data model that was as complex as Bookstore in itself? Like,
Hmm.
how would I relate them? So in this case, I've brought in two separate, one dates, one is checkouts. Let's say dates and checkouts were in one data source, and I brought that in. Would it force me to relate to one of those two in that logical model, if that makes sense,
Yeah, you relate to a specific table within the logical
within the
model.
model? So,
I thought of that later, that I should have brought one of those in. Maybe that'd be a follow-up video, just to not
yeah,
bend
yeah,
people's mind too much. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
and you
yeah. Like
could,
it's a
but
mind mess,
but even from here, right? Like I could take that. I can't anymore, right? But yeah, I could take that to
because
publisher. See,
that then leads to this question about multi-fact analysis, which is,
right?
you could bring another model with, which
Yep.
is sort of, let's say, checkouts and dates, but you could still create multiple relationships off that one model. So
Yes.
really abstract, hard to explain and visualize. Maybe I'll
Right.
put a screenshot of what I'm thinking on in the edit. But yeah, that's really powerful. I mean, it's pretty profound,
Yeah.
because literally just opens up the world to just rethinking how you organize your projects, your workbooks, your data models. You don't have to be so constrained and think of these data models that do everything. Actually, you can have like a central universe and then a bunch of ancillary bits of insight that can be brought in ad hoc for different types of analysis. It's really, really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I did say, and what we both said, they should watch the data modeling
The data
masterclass
model.
first or after,
Yeah.
because you really have to understand the heuristics of what Tableau's doing under the covers on this, or like you could
Correct.
get yourself into a lot of trouble. Um,
Yeah.
Now, whether that's Tableau's fault or not, yeah, I mean, I think it's good. Like it's a very, like we talked about, it's a Tableau ethos almost from day one, which
Yeah.
is they assume you're smart and know what you're doing,
Yeah.
right? For good or bad, right?
Yeah.
Which I always find the opposite of Salesforce, which um, drives you through wizards for everything, where they assume you don't know what you're doing. And like it's very interesting, and and sometimes I wish this did a little better job for people explaining what's going on, but they're getting better. Like that view data model is really helpful, right? For
Okay.
sure.
And
Yeah, but yeah, go ahead.
I was going to ask one last thing. Like, so how long do you think before Tableau suggesting other things you could bring into this based off like what other people are using? Because that's what Tableau Semantics sort of is doing kind of today, right?
Hmm.
So that's the next logical thing for me, which is how many data sources sit on Tableau servers that are just never used, but they were useful for one question. They could be
Right.
useful to someone else for some other reason. And now you have that sort of relationship. As soon as one person creates this relationship, that to me is insight that can go to an AI model and inform the next 10 analysts and say to them, hey, instead of writing out complex date fields, we have a date table over here,
Yeah.
bring that in. It's better for this reason, right?
Yeah. I know they're thinking that way. I don't know how close they are. I.e., the
It-
pull's probably going to be between how deep they go into stuff like the open semantic interchange and bringing in other people's metrics,
yes.
or that, and I'm sure they'll trade off against each other. I'd rather see that personally, but I don't see the whole market maybe. But yeah, for sure, I've been saying for at least 6 months, what I want is I want to have a conversation with an agent, not to automatically build my model, but to help me with, I want to be able to drag that in before I bring dates. A simple
Yeah.
example, say, how am I going to possibly compare checkouts to sales? And it should be able to say, well, I noticed they both have book. So clearly you want to create a relationship to book, but also now you're going to need a date table. I know there's one already published. Like
Yeah.
to your example, like it should help with that for
Should
sure.
help
Like
totally.
and I hope they go that way.
Yeah.
Like because they're like 90% of the way there is the thing.
They
Do you know
are.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this is the hard part,
This
right?
is
Like
the hard
coming
bit.
up
Yeah.
with like this modeling and the heuristic engine to do the work. Because I know because I've been playing with this, which also could be another whole video. If you do this right, not only with like playing a lot with Claude, asking questions against through the Tableau MCP instead of directly against data. And not only are you more likely to get good answers, which of course they bring up all the time, like so they brought up during True to the Core, but it takes the chattiness and tokens way down. Like even if
Yes.
you think you're going to get the right answer either way, like it's going to get you to the answer so much quicker, right? Because this is how you can effectively codify your business and across different data sources, which I want to kind of show with a simple example with row level security. But you could
Yeah.
imagine this could be Snowflake, this could be Databricks,
Exactly. They don't have to
and
be
some could be
connected
from
either.
external vendors. Like
Could be a
that's
web
why
data source connector. Could be an
totally that REST
analytics
API
extension.
connector now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
because today, yeah, I just don't like big companies haven't standardized for the most part on one place to put all their data. So
Yeah.
I think it's tricky that's why I don't think the database vendors like the Snowflakes and Databricks are going to completely own that. I'm skeptical of that.
Yeah.
Right.
We
So
should do a video about 10 things you didn't know you could do with this connection window.
yeah.
Really,
We should.
and really kind of blow people's minds because it I always say to people that it's really hard to communicate that Tableau, especially with VisQL data service, which is also like mind-boggling to think that that can work on top of this in like
Right.
some really sort of abstract way, right? Creates probably the largest single developer surface to connect to 200 plus things, right? So
Yeah.
if I just sort of explain this very briefly, VisQL Data Service is an API that allows you to query any data source in the Tableau ecosystem. It's an API, so developers can use it. The value that Tableau has here is it can connect to many databases and other data sources through the new REST API connector, right? So in essence, you've got one touch point to connect to virtually any data source in the world, which is wild. And then on top of that, you've got things like analytics extensions, which then allow you to do things like you could run machine learning models in the analytics extension
Mm-hmm.
to compute against this. And this composable data source is like perfect because one of these data sources could be an analytics extension as its own published sort of asset. And then because you've now got the ability to run that in Tableau Cloud, yeah, they've got the capabilities to run Python on Tableau Cloud itself.
Right.
These become very, very portable. So like, this is why I said in the video, 10 things you didn't know you could do
Yeah. Right.
with
Yeah.
the connection.
Yeah.
Because you could really push the limits of like, what is the craziest data model connection we could create that like touches on so many different things
Right.
in one go? It's wild.
Yeah.
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 Right.
Because here's,
Yeah, go
yeah.
for it. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, I think a use case that people want a lot as well as what if I then wanted to add some row level security to this? It's
Correct.
not the greatest thing to show that, but what we could do it by, just so we don't keep introducing new concepts, is let's just do it by genre, right? So let's say I've got this super simple entitlements table, right?
Yeah.
Which just has what I can see. Hopefully that's who I signed in as. Yeah, and what'd be neat is I'm on a beta site. Otherwise, I was going to use Prep, and maybe didn't even need Prep, but use the admin insights data source
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
get natively to be able to do some of this. It's just they don't give you that on the beta site. But here's like, so I took this and I also created, it was just simple. I just created this book security on top of it. But all the book security is it's a live connection. You'll notice that, yeah, we might run into a problem with that. But it's that I kept it live. It's not a right. So what happens with this is what I should be able to do is I should be able to also, without messing up this person's model, right? So remember, this person, whoever created this, which you and I certified, might not want row level security on their application of that model.
Yeah.
But in this workbook, we might want it, and kind of at the data source level of the workbook, which will make sense in a second. So if I came here and I search for security, right? So I get this book security, and this is pretty slick for anyone who knows how user functions work in Tableau. By the way, this would be if you were using an Tableau MCP with this as well for fun. And you're using personal access tokens, or you're using JSON web tokens with embedded applications, it would also hold all this. Like I've tested that, right? But we could go, so what I want is, because genres in book, I'm going to go like this again, right? And then, so all I have to do is create a relationship based on genre, right? So I called it genre in this. Did I call it the same in this? I picked a word that's too hard to pronounce. But
to explain
okay,
this,
so
you're basically saying, if I'm a manager and I look after this genre, this is going to apply a model that will mean that I can only look at my genre in this entire data model. That's kind of the idea, yeah?
Right, completely, perfect. So if I come in here, you'll notice that I get these 7 lines or whatever it is, 8 lines, right? I get 8 lines for genres on sale, right? If I come back here now and I say, of course it decides to get slow on us now. So what I want to do is I want to create, I can create a calculated field here, right? So what I could do is, I could do this in the workbook too, but I could go create calculated field. Weird to do it from there, but I'm going to call this row level security, right? And all it is username, which is a Tableau function, equals, I think I called it email. I called it name. Oh, I called it name, I think. It's good to know your data models, right? So if it's equal to the field name, right? So there it is, right? Then what I do is I come up here. So I have a calculated field now, and it's a filter, right? So I come up here and I add a filter, and it's RLS. And right now it's going to set to true if that works, because I'm the only one signed in. But normally you would only get false, right? So you would have to, you'd have to go custom value list and go type true, just for people who are trying this out. But I'm going to be lazy and select from list and say true. And I'm going to go, okay. Oh, yeah. And the other key thing is, this is important. I want to scope it to say, I want it to affect the security table, but also all other tables, right? So when I do this, and if I publish this and I don't let other people author it, if that worked, when I come here, what you're going to see is that I can only see fiction.
Updates, there you go. Nice.
All right. Yeah. And if I came back here and went like that, I didn't even test this first, and then I came back to here, right? And then I refreshed the data. I guess there's a number of ways to do that. Right?
That way.
If I refresh the data, young adult.
Boom. Look at that.
So that's like, that is live against a, not that I'm suggesting you keep Google, but like it shows how that's not in the original model, but I can even add row level security that way. And
I'm surprised that even works, to be brutally honest.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, right? Like, why can't I see children? Why can't I see children?
I would expect some sort of lag and some cache to like.
Yeah, but it's almost instantaneous.
But of course it's not. Each time,
and I can see children's too.
Asset. Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, and again, so the rest of it's an extract. All the other things were an extract, and this was a
And you got
live
a
connection.
live connection to Google Sheets.
Right.
Wowzers.
It, and then
That is wild.
yeah, so it's and then the last thing I wanted to show is again, we're taking genre and killing it to death. But imagine we had sales targets like this. So
Hmm.
this is the quintessential I had to use blending to do this, right? Because someone gets these sales targets for books and they don't own the data source, so they have to do a blend. And the other thing you'd have to do is pivot this, right? Because Tableau hates data this way. But because um, we could. I don't know if we can pivot a Google source or not, but I'm going to pick a simple. There's way better use cases than this. But what I'm going to do is I'm signed in as me and like not my that account. Okay, so what I could do is now what I can do, which I think is really powerful, is I can use Tableau Prep effectively with relationships now. Perfect. So new flow, right, and then we're going to connect to data. And this time we're going to connect to Tableau server, right? And then book targets raw. And
There you go.
there, it took a second, right? And then I still need that clean step because I intentionally didn't clean up
Yeah.
the genre.
Genre.
And then I should rename that
Pivot.
step, but we've been taking a while. Columns to rows. I realize this is faster now anyway.
Yeah, because
Video.
it's ready to
So,
publish.
all
Yeah.
right. So this is month, and this is sales target, right?
Yeah.
And then genre. Perfect. And then I'm going to do an output. And again, we're going to output to a published data source to our book, and we're going to call this um, targets clean. Okay, and I'm going to run
Yeah.
that flow, and it shouldn't let me, which is fine. And I'm going to call this book target flow, and I'm going to publish it.
It is a beta as well, so we should be forgiven.
Yeah, we are in the beta site, so it could be it for sure. Now we can go back here and see our flow should appear, and then if we click on our flow, but the cool part's coming. Did that run? Pending run. Um, So anyway, yeah, I just wanted to show, you could imagine there's lots of like cases for prep that are a
Yeah.
lot more complex than this.
Yeah.
And it was always a frustration before because you could never bring it in, right?
Yeah, because the end state
which was
was
such a drag.
the final thing, you know? But now, yeah, you could have three outputs out of a prep flow, then go build your data model off that.
Yes.
You could have
So
that, which was something you wouldn't have done before.
right. So what we did was we took it was call center data, like at the transaction level, right? We cleaned it up a bit first and then
Mhm.
put that out as a kind of drill down flow, like kept it at that grain,
Yeah,
but forked it, went up, aggregated it so we could get and Tableau Prep's so good at this. It'd be worth a video on its own. We took we said add it to the month level of call resolution rate, and then by manager by month, rank each employee,
yeah,
right, on that resolution rate, which is so complicated in
yeah,
desktop and slow. And then we just brought it in, did a bump chart, and then when you click, it filtered the other data source, which was the exact number of calls. So it could handle that level of data because it was always filtered first.
yeah.
Right. So again, like
Makes
you said, it
sense.
was a fork flow, which made a lot of sense. So we were in here, right? So now, just to recap where we were, we added security, we added dates,
Yeah,
so that we could do checkout compare, right? Now what we want is we also want targets. So we could put this, we could leave this for people as a fun takeaway. Targets cleaned, because we could either put this. I think it's going to work either way in this case. We could put it as a base table, right? But
true.
I don't think we need to. I think we could say like keep it in one kind of tree. We could go like that. Um, Based on genre, you know what? We probably can't, because what we want. Let me go back. I'm I'm changing my mind on this, because we want it to share both genre and date, right? So we
Yes.
can compare across dates, right?
Yeah.
So if I bring this up a little bit, we can go genre from the extract, genre from here, and this also would let us. This also, we could have had, if we put it out here and we also had targets in the same file for checkouts, it would have worked, right?
Yeah.
And then we can take dates like this, and this one's going to look
Do by
more like
defact. Yeah.
the checkout one, because we only have month level targets, right? A little bit of a cheat, because here what we want to do is, um, oh, I should have converted that first. What's the this will test my Tableau skills. So what is it? It would be
It's
date
month.
name.
What is it going from?
It's a date, because it's called, let me do this again. Because on this side, I like, it's the month name or whatever, right?
January.
Uh
Okay.
right.
Fine.
So does this work? I think this works.
Yeah.
Does it like that? It should
Uh,
take a date. It didn't like it. Yes, it did. Okay.
yeah, it did.
So
It's taken a
now,
while.
if we went to a new sheet, what we should be able to do, if we were to say put genre on, oh, again, roll off of security still being applied.
Still working. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. And so that'll pass through the whole thing, right? And so now we could take our sales count, and we could take date. I guess I could not drop it like a noob, and I could drop it like this. Right. And then discrete and continuous are going to be the
Date,
same
yeah.
in this case. And then
Targets.
where did targets go? You know, you can now search T target. Uh,
To the top.
did it not come?
So right at the top.
Why don't I see
Oh
it?
no, wait, that's author. My bad.
Oh, because it's prep. Anyway,
That's a
I'm sure
quirk.
this will get
That's a
better with
quirk.
time.
That's a quirk.
But there's my sales target, right?
There you
And
go.
there's my sales versus target. And now we could do a
a delta, do
calculation,
a heat map.
right,
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah,
quickly and turn into a heat
yeah.
map or whatever. So I'm not doing a full Tableau demo, but you'll see we could compare it to, like, yeah, color coded or whatever. But now we brought targets in from prep, right? Where before we would have had
Wow.
to do that like as a blend, and it would have been an absolute mess. So yeah, there it is. So kind of what we built, again, we could view our data model this way, right? Again, and it really shows how this is neat. But we started with this data source, and we didn't have to go back to that person, right?
Yeah.
And we didn't mess up any workbooks with that in it, right?
Yeah.
And then we brought all these other things in, and now we could always say, given the view we're looking at, what fields are we using? And I don't care about the hires,
What's relevant? Yeah.
So, but and I do think what in time they will come with is, this is modal, so it's hard to show sharing one screen. But in desktop, it would pop if we highlight a field, or say we did that field to
It'd pop up.
compare. It would highlight the tables it came from. But I do think the goal they have is to get like a prep like interface to show what the join is too, which
Yeah.
would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that'll come in time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But you'll see we built that. The only thing I would end with is we could have, if we were back, wherever, it doesn't matter. So if we were, yeah, I don't know how you exit that. If we were back, say here, we built that effectively like an embedded data source, right?
Yeah.
We could have created a new published data source, which might make sense again for something like your VizQL data example or whatever, right? So we could start with bookstore, right? Our bookstore data source. I'm not going to rebuild the whole thing, but you get the idea that we could come back here, add a published data source, and then publish the new data source, which is like, the superset of those data sources. And then people could use that data source without having to do it. But that's why I love it both ways, right? So we could make it that way. So, we make it available to agents or VizQL data service or just people in general, or people in the flow of their work could do this, right?
Yeah.
So my early thoughts are, now, how people, especially with prep being brought in, say you can only use prep, but your job's now becoming kind of like an analytics engineer, but not a full-on one. You
Yeah.
still don't have to know how to write SQL. Now what
Yeah.
you could do is you could do fact tables, so effectively, tables with raw kind of transactional data in them. Then use prep to create um, aggregate tables
Yep.
and still have cleaned up dimension tables. And if you train people the right way, they could compose their own data sources.
I
And
see.
this age old, well, if I aggregate my data, I can't get to the level, I can't drill down to the detail I want. But if I don't aggregate it, my dashboard's really slow. Well, now put both of them in the same data source
You
and
got
you
the
don't have to make
option.
that trade-off
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Interesting.
yeah, that's what, so this is why I've been even more excited about these after I saw them, was this whole, I'm in my flow of work. I don't have to get out of my flow of work
Yeah.
to be able to do even crazy things, like, well, not crazy, but advancedy things from a business perspective, not a technical one, like adding row level security to an existing model or bringing
Hmm.
in sales targets or,
Yeah.
so I thought that kind of captured the use case pretty well.
It's very good. Yeah. It's a crazy time to be alive, as they like to say. This is I had not anticipated it to be this flexible. And I guess maybe it makes sense why it took long, because I thought what was taking long was the more simple version where you had to sort of scope how these two big entities come together. But actually, this is far more flexible. And it, you're totally right. If you use this irresponsibly, you will create very inefficient workbooks. But that's
Mhm.
always been this. That's always been possible, right? People do weird things with custom SQL and all that jazz, and Tableau's never stopped you doing that. If you can, it will let you.
Right.
That still applies. But yeah, very good.
Uh, and like we talked about in the other one, is each one of these, when you make them multi-fact like this, especially, is um, is an independent query tree that
Yeah,
uh, Tableau's going to run. And if you have a calculation in a view or both in the view from these, that it's going to effectively do a coalesce query in memory in the view to do that. So you
right.
could, if you weren't careful and tried to get too atomic with it, you might end up with so much data that the thing's gonna
Slow down. Oh, I see.
fail on you. But
It
like, so
does
you
it
have to
in
think about your
memory. Did you
use
say?
case. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that
Because,
your database doesn't get hit with the SQL that would have been generated from this, which would
well,
be quite
there's,
nasty.
well, I think the point is that I'm not sure your database could get it from a couple of, because even if you pushed it down.
You
Yeah,
wouldn't
if it
put
was
it in
live, it
the.
might be okay. You'd have to push it to Snowflake, but you still have to get the results out at the right level of grain to stitch it together in
Yeah.
memory,
But
right?
Tableau's
Because
doing it
they're
in memory.
completely.
Yeah. I
But
say that
yeah,
because I think Sigma tries to write the query to get it all done in the database, right? This as an example, whereas this is actually slightly more efficient because almost doing it client side means your database doesn't have to brunt the load, but also Tableau can do it more efficiently because they know what's in the view. They know what's actually required. It doesn't have to query the whole thing, even if you're going to bring back columns you don't need for that specific view or sheet.
yeah. I guess we should be clear in that if they were live, if this was live and not extracts, I think it would push the query down. But the part that always is
It
going to happen in memory is because these trees are different. Um,
correct.
and it's hard for databases to do those and to model
But
these. I think this is it. Yeah,
but
there's not a lot of products that do this well, I don't
but
think.
to be clear, this is a live connection to published data sources,
Right.
which in themselves might be extracts, right? Is
Which
that
could be
fair?
extracts.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly. So
100%.
like it's not suddenly changing the connections to live. It's like the
Right.
way it's querying these data sources as Tableau sees it is a live connection to these published data sources. You
Yeah.
could also have a Google Sheet that is connected live, or you could have, let's say, another thing which is not live. It's an extract, but
Mhm.
this live extract toggle at the top applies to this whole picture that we see. So when you hit extract, at least in this view, it would go and download, I don't know how many tables, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 tables, save them separately in the way that it stores its data model.
Mhm.
And then when you actually use the workbook, it queries them based on what's in the view, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's confusing for sure. So you'll see, because I'm on the web, I can't extract it.
You can't
Um,
extract, yeah.
but if I were in desktop and I extracted it, it would actually it would take a snapshot of it as a bunch of
Extract of an
files.
extract.
And it confuses people because then you would have to republish that data source explicitly to get it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah.
I wish they kind of had, I wish they had,
blockers.
they had live extract and then published, connected to a published data source or something, right?
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Because here it's not, it's only that I know that these tables are all extracts and this is a live Google Sheet. It's not clear at all, right? Looking at this. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's things they could improve for sure. We got to keep them in, we got to keep them employed. but it is, but I mean, it's but the actual UX of it, I really, really, really like because I can stay in my flow of work, which was cool.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Like this is like, I mean, it is pretty neat to go, all right, I need to see like, all the targets, right? If I
Yeah.
like literally all I have to do is go like that, right? Go
Yeah.
go back to this, and if I were to
Refresh
refresh this, yeah, I'm gonna see like pretty much instantaneously. It's just it's a web app, so it's stateless, but
Of course, no,
yeah.
it doesn't.
Now, are you kidding? That's the
You did it earlier on. Everyone saw it. Don't worry.
everyone saw it. Yeah. Was it something about the order I built that in or something? Anyway, yeah, it
Maybe the session's just out of luck. Maybe
That
the
could
Google
be.
Sheets session doesn't persist because I think we had this before. Do you remember?
Yeah.
I think the Google Sheets session stays active, and beyond that, it wants a new like session token or something like that. That could
Yeah,
be what it is.
and I didn't embed my token. I don't know if you noticed. That's why I thought I might run into complete problems with it because I didn't embed it in the connection. So
Maybe when you publish it up, that will force a refresh.
yeah, or
Anyway,
I should, yeah,
it's all
you
good.
know what I mean.
We saw it.
Back
We saw
here,
it.
back here it should definitely say live. Yeah, I had to push it too far.
Amazing. That's
Yeah.
very cool, Kirk. Listen, Kirk, thank you again. It's been an absolute pleasure. I think this is going to be a great little addition to our data model masterclass. I feel like I have to we have to pencil in like 10 things you didn't know you could do with a Tableau data
Yeah.
source kind of a thing. Let's build like this one mega connection which does 10 things that you didn't know, and then publish them all. You know, your Google live query things blew my mind in this context because I was like, wow, like if you take that and just really run with it, like what crazy thing could we build in one
Right.
composable data source, right?
Yeah, that'd be fun to do.
Yeah,
We should.
that'll be fun.
Sure.
Let's do that at some point in the next few months. I'll start penciling some ideas, and then we'll build out the use case, and we'll do it.
Nice, awesome.
Good
Thanks
stuff.
again for having me on.
Cheers. Take care.
See ya.